Hello and welcome to the CBB Supershow. I'm your host, Waddell, aka Dub Deuce 85. Got the CFB Supershow banner behind me. This is the CBB version of the show. Didn't get that swapped out, so bear with me. A lot going on, man. The world of college sports. We're mid-season beyond on college football. The college basketball grind is a mere week away, literally. And we are just rolling through these various college basketball conference previews. We handled the Big 10, the Big 12, the Pac-12, just smashing through these previews. Today, we're going to be talking Big East. Then we've got SEC, and then we're going to have mid-major, low-major, kind of talking about relevant teams there for fantasy purposes and really get you into the know here. So with the Big East, we're going to kind of just jump right into it. We want to get down to the bread and butter, the meat and potatoes, and just give you what you need with the information here. And we're going to go, team by team here, giving you the relevant information. So Marquette, the Golden Eagles come into this returning, a lot of production from last year. Important veterans we know from, talking so far. And our experience with college basketball, especially now the last couple of years, experience is so important. You get a roster of all one and dones, you're just not winning the title against these guys who are grown men, played college basketball, and literally know this game in and out. They do lose Oliver Maxence Prosper, a very torturous DFS option that definitely was tough to trust at times. But they do bring back Tyler Kolek, Cam Jones, Stevie Mitchell, David Joplin, Oso Ighodaro, Ben Gold, Sean Jones, and Chase Rice. That is the rotation, all returning. They have three freshmen coming in: Caden Hamilton, Zaid Lowry, and Al Amadou, and Trey Norman. But that kind of like 7, 8, 9 guy rotation, it's just going to be a lot of returning players. That role that Oliver Maxence Prosper leaves behind is going to be filled by David Joplin, who comes in as a high usage scorer mentality, shoots 40% from long range, somebody that we're going to be able to utilize a lot. Defensively, he's actually not so bad there either. So the minutes are going to really go to David Joplin first, and I think that's kind of to be expected. And then the bench side of things, Sean Jones, Chase Rosh, Ben Gold, all of those guys have been cheap in the past and have shown an ability to put up fantasy points in short spurts. I personally really like Chase Rosh quite a bit. I think Sean Jones is a nice piece. Ben Gold is somebody who can play center, and if Oso Ighodaro gets into foul trouble, hurt, God forbid, Ben Gold's going to be the one that steps in there. As far as your main options go, Tyler Kolek, of course, coming back as a likely, first team all-conference candidate. 40% three-point shooter, 7.5 assists per game, just over 12.5 points per game as well. Somebody who contributes at a high level. Assist rate, the fourth best assist rate in the country last year at just under 40%. Kolek is definitely going to be a problem for opposing defenses. Now, I don't like Marquette necessarily to win the conference, which might be different than a lot of people. I see a lot of folks talking about Marquette, but then as we get closer to the season, I'm starting to see people kind of back off Marquette, which is kind of interesting to me. I definitely think their experience puts them near the top of the pack, though. Aside from Kolek, Cam Jones is going to be an absolute bonker scorer. Stevie Mitchell has potential, of course, as a role player. And then our guy, Oso Ighodaro, who's kind of a lean, mean fighting machine. No, but he's just a lean kid who can definitely, play very well back to the basket, can rebound at a high level, can get himself, a bucket, can rebound really well and just block shots and do all these other things. Gonna have to muscle his way around some tough centers in the Big East, but Oso is certainly a guy who's going to step up, and he'll absorb a lot of that usage and rebounding that is left behind by Maxence Prosper as well. Let's keep jettisoning through here, moving on past them. The Creighton Blue Jays. Now let me see here. Let me get Creighton pulled up. I think we might have. We're starting to get box scores, right? So secret scrimmages are happening, exhibitions are happening. We're getting some, early indications of what rotations might look like. But we have to keep in mind that hey, there are players missing from these, scrimmages, and you can't just jump all in and assume this is how it's going to be. A lot of people are talking up certain players, but just, without really paying attention to, oh yeah, that's what happened. So Creighton is a team that I think a lot of people got overexcited about last year. They obviously made it pretty far, the Elite Eight. Really just, losing Ryan Nemhard is tough. Arthur Kaluma, Sharif Mitchell, but they bring in a gang of productive players. And I think that Creighton's main issue last year, at least in my eyes, was their lack of depth. They do lose some important pieces, which Kaluma was thought to return for sure, but they do bring in Stephen Ashworth from Utah State, Isaac Trout from Virginia, Jonathan Lawson from Memphis, and then a trio of freshmen in Josiah Dotzler, Sterling Knox, and Brock Weiss. All pretty solid names. Ashworth comes in, 44% three-point shooter, 16 points per game for Utah State. Really great fit sliding in there to be the point guard and run this team with Nemhard gone. Importantly, Trey Alexander comes back for his third season after shooting over 41% from long range. Look for him to take a huge step forward. He's already shown that in the past. He's going to be a very important player. Baylor Shireman, rebounding extraordinaire, double-double machine, very good three-point shooter, just over 36%. Ryan Kalkbrenner, the shot-blocking machine that he is, over 7 feet. 32% from long range last year, by the way, but averaged 16 and 6. Now, his rebounding props were some of the most frustrating props in all of college basketball last year because it seems like this 7-foot kid should be able to get 5, 6, 7 rebounds. They present us with a Ryan Kalkbrenner 5.5 rebounding prop. It's like, hey, honey, we're going to be putting the Mason's college fund in on this play. How could he miss? And then he wasn't getting it. So we quickly, after the first month of the season, stopped messing with the Kalkbrenner rebounding props. But I'm going to definitely be sucked into it, I think, early this year as well. Bringing in Isaac Trout, who, like I said, transferred from Virginia. He's going to be a very viable role player. I think somebody who's going to have some fantasy viability for us and value. Mason Miller returns. He'll get into or likely be in the mix for a starting spot. Francisco Farabello is back. Very low-end bench player to me. Frederick King, who is the heir apparent to Ryan Kalkbrenner. When Kalk was out with injuries, mono, whatever it was that he had, Frederick King stepped in and had some really high fantasy point per minute games. So King is certainly a guy to keep an eye on here. But this Creighton team, even though they are going to have more depth than the last year, I still foresee them really going with a 7-8 man rotation at most. We'll see what happens with some of the incoming transfer parts, but I think Ashworth will be a big time producer immediately. But I'm really excited to see Alexander, Shireman, Kalkbrenner. And the problem we had with Creighton last year is they were just always priced right. It's like, hey, we know Kaluma's going to play 30 minutes. We know Alexander's going to play 35 minutes, and it was just like they're priced 7.5, they're priced 8K, they get their 3.5, 4X, but opportunity costs. So we'll have to see how that works out this year. But I'm certainly going to be looking at using Creighton a whole hell of a lot, to the degree that they'll probably be one of my favorite teams to use on primarily Big East slates. Let me see here. I want to find. Could have swore I had a box score for a Creighton game recently, but of course I can't find it now. All right, let's move on to the next group, which is the defending champion UConn Huskies, a team that certainly is going to have a championship window open for the next, 3, 4, 5 years. I honestly, truly believe that. Why do I believe that? They lost Jordan Hawkins. They lost Andre Jackson. They lost, Sanogo. Naheem Aline is off to another program. Joey Calcaterra, Joey California, whatever you want to call him, he's gone. How could they possibly be in the mix for another championship? How could I even begin to say that? Well, they have an amazing freshman class coming in that isn't theoretically going to have to produce consistently at a high level. That'll certainly be a bonus, won't it? but they don't have to. They don't got to rely on those freshmen coming in to light the world on fire. They have Cam Spencer coming in from Rutgers, who is going to be a very good shooter scorer for them. Replaces some of that, shooting loss from Calcaterra and Aline. He is going to be an instant starter for this club. 44% three-point shooter, averaged about 13 and 4 while with Rutgers. Looking forward to seeing him next to Tristan Newton, who did decide to return. That was huge. Had Newton left, I might have been like, the window's still open, but is it really, a realistic option for them to make the Final Four again this year? Maybe not so much, but Newton returns. Absolutely. Alex Caravan, who is really a brand favorite, not of FTN, and maybe not even of the Super Show, since I've got guest hosts and other people that put in on this, but a brand of Dub Deuces is Alex Caravan. I am a huge fan of his. I think that he is going to make an absolute breakout of a season this year. You go through and you look at what he was able to do last year on a team that had several high usage, high shot rate guys like Hawkins. He had a shot 3 from long range, 41% on 164 attempts, so he's solid there. His shot rate was only 16% for the total season because obviously there's so many other guys there. But in conference play and as they got later in the season, that number started to go up. And he actually had a top 15 true shooting percentage in the entire conference and an offensive rating of third best in the Big East with all those great players there. That's solid. Top 20 in offensive rebounding rate. Top 20 in block rate, which may surprise some people. A little more athletic than I think people give him credit for. As long as he continues to improve as a three-point shooter, which he already shot 41%, my man, get a little bit tougher, a little bit stronger. He's going to be in for a big role this year, and Caravan's going to be somebody that should be relatively cheap, right away. I think, $6K at most. Could be surprised if they put him at like $8K or something, but I think we'll get him at a decent price. Donovan Clingan comes on to take over for Sanogo. Now, I thought Donovan Clingan already as a freshman showed himself to be one of the best centers in the country. And I know that's some hyperbole. That's a little bit of that Dub Deuces craziness that I like to say. But he really showed us some fantastic moves, fantastic rebounding ability, his shot blocking as a complete player as a freshman. Now, he went through struggles. He was a youngster. He went through inconsistencies. He couldn't stop fouling. There were definitive issues, but in small spurts when he was getting these, 3 to 5 minutes at a time, he was putting up a very high fantasy point per minute number. And he had some games where, he was only on the floor for all of, 14 minutes and he would be having 12 points, 8 rebounds, or 15 minutes and he's putting up a 20-point game. His best game of the season had to be that LIU game back in December 10th, 21 points, 11 rebounds. Now it's LIU, but he did that in 15 minutes and he made every single shot that he took. Granted, a lot of them were bunnies and dunks and easy under the basket stuff, but that just shows you he's capable. And if healthy, fingers crossed, he's going to be an absolute terror to opposing non-con opponents throughout the next month of the season, first month of the season, I should say. You go into the conference play, you see at a game against Marquette in early January, 20 points, 10 rebounds, had a bunch of turnovers, blocked a shot, got in some foul trouble, but that was in 21 minutes. And that was the most minutes he played for the entire season, showed himself capable. I don't think he steps in here and starts playing like 35 minutes a night or something crazy like that. He's definitely going to have some conditioning stuff where it's going to make him suffer. We didn't even see Sanogo, right? He played 24 to 28 minutes, maybe 30 on some nights. So I think a similar situation here with Donovan Clingan, but his high fantasy point per minute number makes me pretty confident in him either way. They do have Hassan Diarra still around. And then you look at the class coming in here, Yusuf Singare, Jaden Ross, Solo Ball, Stephen Castle, and from Garfield High School, which is downtown Seattle. Might have an affinity for players from the Seattle area. Jalen Stewart didn't go to the right Huskies, but that's okay. Goes to UConn, where I will certainly root for him. Looking at it, Castle is the guy. Castle is going to be a player that's going to get minutes on the wing right away, and they're going to definitely be in a position, like I said, they can kind of take it easy with some of these freshmen, similar to Michigan State with their great freshman class that comes in. They don't have to rely on those guys right away. So they're going to be able to nurture them. They're going to be able to give them additional minutes in non-con blowouts. They're going to be able to really kind of just bring them along and learn behind some of these veterans, which is the absolute best position to be in when you don't have to throw them onto the floor and expect them to, hey, you're going to come out here, we got to win the game on your shoulders. You've never played a collegiate basketball game, but you need to go out there. You are used to dominating kids who are not as skilled as you. You're used to scoring anytime you want. Now you're in a program and against other teams in the conference that are as the same skill level, or if not better than you. So it's going to be tough there for some of them, but Cam Spencer is going to help alleviate some of that stress and drama for some of these youngsters. Castle might only be a one and done. That's how good he really can be. Likely a starter. He can operate similar to Andre Jackson, but he can score. He can score at will. So think about Andre Jackson and how good he was putting up, 5x, 6x. You look at his stat line, he scores like 2 to 7 points. Now put that to a player like Castle who can score 15 a night, honestly. Won't need to on this team, but he could. And then the Andre Jackson peripherals, and you're looking at a player that's like, man, all of a sudden my shorts got real tight. This guy is going to be real special. So he's going to be great for sure. I don't see any reason why he won't play a lot. They'll be able to take it easier with Solo Ball, Jalen Stewart, Jaden Ross, those guys. Yusuf Singare, he's going to just big kid. So I don't know that he'll play that much, but, Klingen or some of these other guys, get hurt or something happens, maybe he'll be thrust into more minutes. But I think Stewart, and I'm biased, I think he has the chance to be the best collegiate player of the group. That's only because I think Castle goes pro like right away. I think Stewart and Solo Ball play a second year, and year 2, Jalen Stewart's going to be real special. I think that he could kind of fill into a production level of like an Alex Caravan did in his freshman year, maybe a little bit less. There will be times where we can use them. There'll be matchups where UConn just they're favored to win by 15 or something like that. That's where I really want to look at targeting some of these guys. So the young kids are in a great position. This UConn team, they're going to recruit well. They're going to be able to hit the transfer portal well. They obviously have a championship window open for a few years. Gonzaga Bulldogs, they had that championship window from like 2016 to 21, 22, like a wide open window with those crew. Last year it kind of shut, and it's going to be shut for a few years now. It doesn't mean they won't open it back up, but right now that time for UConn is now, and they're looking in a phenomenal position with the group that they have. There was apparently yesterday, I'm going to move to the Villanova Wildcats, by the way, having conversations in my head. Villanova, they just whoa, look at that. That's cool. Might just be my Twitter feed, but shows the Supershow up on the Twitter feed there, on the something you may like. That's pretty deep. That's pretty neat. All right. Anyways, Villanova, they played a scrimmage with Duke, apparently. I don't know. I didn't see a box score from that. I did try to look about that. There was a couple of tweets from Jeff Goodman, a couple others that Kyle Flipowski, when we talked about this during the ACC show, hip injuries can be tough. Apparently he was very, very good. No trouble against Villanova. Had a lot of success. Like I said, I didn't see the stat line, but a lot of people gushing about how great he was looking in that Villanova game. Was trying to pull some other stuff there. Only other thing I heard was that Duke won the scrimmage, but then I heard from 2 other Big East people that Villanova was the better team. So those scrimmages, if they're not official and people are keeping score, saying it's not important, but of course, like we won. So I don't know. All I know is Villanova was in it, and they produced really well. That's a big sign for Villanova, because obviously Duke is loaded. Even if I have to, admit that as a Duke hater, you look at what Villanova loses with Caleb Daniels, Cam Whitmore, my guy, and Brandon Slater, but they bring in a plethora of transfers. TJ Bamba from Washington State, a scorer. Tyler Burton from Richmond, a massive fantasy asset. Hakeem Hart from Maryland, who can do a little bit of everything, and then Lance Ware from Kentucky. Solid pieces. They returned a healthy Justin Moore. That's huge. A healthy Eric Dixon, who is very, very good, much better than people give him credit for. Second year, Mark Armstrong, he's going to have to contribute some way, somehow. Jordan Longingo, he'll have to contribute some way, somehow. And then, of course, you got Archie in the house here with Chris. He's okay. I don't know how much he'll have to play, but maybe. And then Trey Patterson, Nana Njoku, some depth pieces here. This Nova team definitely has some depth. I don't particularly love the job that Kyle Neptune did last year. I don't think anyone really could. They were 500. People saying, well, the roster they had, look at the roster they had. And I would just counter, like, let me read this off to you guys, because, Jay Wright maybe doesn't get in the conversation as much as he should as being one of the greatest coaches of, like, I don't know, the last couple of decades. He finished his last season at 30-8. Turns it over to Neptune with a roster of Caleb Daniels, Eric Dixon, Cam Whitmore, Justin Moore, Mark Armstrong, Brandon Slater. Then the bench pieces, Breezy, Angelo Breezy, who never played. Watch out for him. We're going to talk about Davidson this week. Angelo Breezy is going to be that guy. Jordan Longino, Chris Archie, Trey Patterson. Like, yeah, it's not a great roster, but you mean to tell me that that roster under Jay Wright doesn't make a NCAA tournament, possibly win a game, win 25 plus games? I think they do. So Neptune was a bit over his head in my mind. He definitely had a job there to do that it didn't come to fruition. What was even harder, too, was Fordham looked really good without him. And I'm not trying to dogpile on the guy by any means. Hey, Josh, what's up? Not trying to trash talk Coach Neptune with you around, man. Sorry. He's done a great job. No, he's a good coach, though, for sure. I don't know. I feel like that team should have done a lot better. And I honestly feel like Cam Whitmore under Coach Wright would have been just absolutely ape shit all season long. I expected a much bigger season from him. His rates were great, and he had some really big nights. But I would say from a fantasy perspective, which is really what we care about here, right? It was a disappointment for Cam Whitmore. And one of our editors and a good friend of mine, Adam Young, he was not a big fan of Cam Whitmore, so he and I had our battles over that. But this Villanova team coming in, they're going to be solid. And the fact that they had a group of veterans like this give it to those younger Duke players just shows exactly and kind of proves what we've been talking about. Having veteran core group, whatever, is such a big deal in college basketball. And I know Duke has some veterans as well. We talked about that during the ACC show. But this Villanova team, I think, is going to be better than people probably realize. A healthy Justin Moore and a healthy Eric Dixon, that's just going to be really, really big. Like, I could see Moore putting up a massive type, like, maybe not 20-point per game season because of the presence of TJ Bamba, but somewhere between 15 to 18 real points for Justin Moore seems very likely. Obviously, Tyler Burton's going to have to get some points. Eric Dixon is going to be a scorer. But the nice thing is that this Nova bench isn't going to be required to score too much. Maybe they bring Armstrong off the bench or Longino. They'll add a little bit, but for the most part, the starting lineup minus Hakeem Hart, who won't be required to score, it's just going to be there to defend and kind of contribute in other aspects. There should be plenty of basketball for the guys who do need to score. I think Bamba, Moore, Dixon, and Burton can coexist and still get theirs without ruining any kind of chemistry. So expecting pretty big things for this team. TJ Bamba is interesting because he's really good off the catch and shoot, but I feel like Moore is too. So I'm between those two. I'm kind of like, who's going to be a facilitator at times, and then you really look at it like, whoa, Mark Armstrong's really going to have to step up. He's going to be able to have to play minutes. He's going to have to be able to defend. He's going to have to be able to cut down on turnovers. They're going to need Mark Armstrong to really step into that facilitator role and own it. So I think he's the real X factor of this team. I think there are a lot of other names that need to produce, of course, but if Mark Armstrong can run the offense adequately, this Villanova team has a chance to threaten a win or two in the tournament. If he's not, and he kind of just struggles like last year, it might be tough. I think the offense might become a little stagnant. You might see a little bit of we used to call it rat ball when I was coming up, but just plays breaking down, everybody trying to hunt their own shots. I think this is a group that could go one, either way in that. I don't think there's any true middle. I think this Villanova team will either surprise people and win a game in the tournament, maybe go to the Sweet 16, or it all falls apart and they end up NIT bound. So I hate to report that, Josh, and I could certainly be wrong, but it seems like there's really no middle for me with this team. All right, we're going to move on to the next team here, the St. John's Red Storm, and I want to lead with the fact that they played an exhibition game. They were missing my man Joel Soriano, so we need to start with that. They were missing Soriano. That's big. They were also missing Jordan Dingle, who arguably will be one of their best guards, if not the best guard. You know, you can say what you will about Naheem Ali, Dennis Jenkins, Brady Dunlap, the kid. You know, there's some good pieces here. Glenn Taylor's more of a wing. But missing, you know, arguably your top guard and obviously your top interior player, things are going to be tough. But you still shouldn't probably lose a game to Pace. Pace beat St. John's today 63-59. Now, the Pace basketball team, they are actually quite good for a Division II program. And I don't, that kind of makes it sound like Division II sucks. Division II has some really good teams. And I mean, Division II teams would, you know, wipe the floor with a lot of us. Pace is a high-level Division II team, definitely. I mean, I guess them winning this game it's a surprise, but maybe not like the biggest shock in the world. Pace could probably walk through the MEAC. They could walk through a couple of lower conferences and do well. So I guess it's not a super stunning score, especially without Soriano and Dingle. Now, if Soriano and Dingle played and it was 63-59, then I'd be like, panic button, DEFCON 4, like St. John's, you know, what's going on? We got a problem here, Rick. We got a problem. So we'll kind of just take that and move forward with the idea that with those two, they're going to be a very good St. John's program because Rick Pitino is one of the best coaches. Say what you will about him in the personal life and everything else. He is one of the best coaches in basketball history, not just college basketball history, but basketball history. Now, Naheem Ali was hot today. Hit 4 triples, had 22 real points. That was big. Chris Ledlam, 12 rebounds, 2 blocks. Like seeing that. Brady Dunlap, the youngster, hit a couple threes. Simeon Wilcher kind of struggled, but he was out there. Glenn Taylor was real bad, barely played any minutes at all. I'm very worried for Glenn Taylor, who had a chance to be, you know, very, very high usage, big time player for Oregon State had he come back. Now, he was on the the Abdul-Jabbar list, one of those preseason award lists, which was surprising to me because looking at that and you know how deep this roster is in playing time, I don't know that Glenn Taylor is going to play all that much. I'm kind of actually really worried now. Dennis Jenkins played a lot. He didn't look very good. Zuby Ejiofor, who transferred over, he had 8 rebounds, he had 7 blocks. So Zuby's going to be a big time rim protector. And then Drisa Traore, who is one of the only others to return for this team, and Coach Pitino was all about. He had 3 rebounds, 2 blocks, had a couple of points. So this Red Storm team, they've got a lot of talent. Let's go through the departure list. David Jones, gone. Posh Alexander, love him, off to Butler. Andre Curbelo, gone. Montez Mathis, Dylan Adewusu, AJ Storr, Raphael Pinson, Omar Stanley, and Colby King, all out the door. That's a huge amount. All but 2 players, Joel Soriano and Drisa Traore, gone. So, of course, Pitino had to hit the portal hard. Now, he did bring in some freshmen, Simeon Wilcher and Brady Dunlap, 2 very good freshmen. It remains to be seen how plugged in and how much they'll actually play and how fantasy viable they'll be. These are guys who, you know, in years 2 and 3, especially Dunlap, we're going to be talking about a lot more. They did lose out on arguably one of the best point guard prospects of the last like 15 to 20 years in Boogie Fland, who decided to go to Kentucky. I'm sad about that. St. John's was in on him. They didn't get him. Our dear friend still says it's because of Simeon Wilcher and promises made to him. That may be. I'm not in a position to say otherwise. He would be more plugged in on that than I am, seeing that he's, you know, lives and breathes and sleeps and eats the St. John's basketball. I'm over here on the West Coast. I'm the biggest St. John's fan on the West Coast, but the way I am with my knowledge of what Huskies is the way he is with the St. John's. So with Wilcher, they miss out on Fland. He's obviously going to be a part of what happens here. But they go through and they load up in the portal Now, with Ricky P coming over from Iona, he brings over some help. Didn't get Walter Clayton, which I think was a pretty big miss. Clayton goes to Florida, which we'll talk about on the SEC show. That one hurts. They do get Dennis Jenkins, who's a capable scorer, 3-point, shot maker, facilitator, can do a little bit of everything. Naheem Aline comes over from UConn, shooter, world champion pedigree. He'll be just fine. Obviously, 22 points today, but I don't think that's going to be his role necessarily, especially with Jordan Dingle around, who Dingle transfers in from Penn. Jordan Dingle averaged 24 points per game last year, 36% from long range over there at Penn. Very good player. Can't wait to see him in a game that matters for St. John's and how that's going to click. Chris Ledlum transfers in from Harvard. That was a really big one. Ledlum originally going to go to the Vols, decides to back out of that. Averaged 18 and 8 last year. He's going to be a big-time piece for this St. John's roster. Glenn Taylor comes over from Oregon State, one of the few talented players on last year's Oregon State roster, averaged 12 and 3, shot 31% from long range, but again, seems like he might not play that much. RJ Lewis transfers in from UMass. Zuby Ejiofor from Kansas. Cruz Davis, another one from Iona. Saduku Ibn Ayo, also from Iona. So 3 players from Iona. None of them Walter Clayton, which is tough, but not a death sentence. And then Sean Conway, who came over from VMI as a 38% three-point shooter. So they've got some versatility. They've got some three-point shooting. They have Joel Soriano, who is going to be an absolute load. The only player in the conference to average a double-double last year, by the way. I know that seems like I'm lying, but check it out. It's the truth. Seems kind of crazy that no one else in the conference would be able to do that. I love him in a Rick Pitino-led offense, and defensively, he's going to be even better than he was last year. Very good low post scorer. Gets it down on the block. He's going to make something happen. Whether he's getting to the foul line or he's getting that bunny, he's going to make things happen. He needs to rehash or refine his shot blocking ability. At Fordham, we saw some big things in that regard. Last year, it was kind of hit or miss, but Soriano has a chance to be really special. First team all conference under Rick Pitino. That had an absolute amazing situation to be in. So that's great for him. Dingle, I think, is going to be fantastic and is going to have the green light to just score when needed. I'm on the fence about Dennis Jenkins. I like him. I think he's good, but I foresee some struggles for him. And then a lot of these guys are just going to be role players. I think Chris Ledlum has the most opportunity out of the rest of them to be viable for a main lineup situation when it comes to DFS purposes. But I do think this St. John's team, at least the first couple of weeks, couple of games, whatever you want to say, are going to be maybe a little on the wait and see. Or, hey, you're running, you're in the mini max, you're running 150 lineups. Okay, you can rotate through the Johnnies and see what happens. But I think initially, outside of Soriano and Dingle, I might be a little bit hesitant to have heavy exposure on these guys, just because of how deep they are. We'll see how that actually happens. And a pecking order will eventually be established. Remains to be seen, options 3, 4, and 5. All right, moving on to the next team here. We've got Providence, the Friars. Yes, you do. Villanova definitely deeper. Fellow 49er fan, I see. Are you trolling me? I hate the Niners, but I love Christian McCaffrey. All right, moving right along here, Providence, they get a new coach who stays in the conference, or their old coach stays in the conference, I should say. They bring in Kim English, who had a pretty nice thing trending in the George Mason program. They have to replace a few key pieces. Jared Bynum, who heading to Stanford, as we talked about. Clifton Moore, who's out of, been in college forever. Alan Breed, Noah Locke, no longer torturing us with his, hey, he just scored 18 real points and got 17 and a half fantasy points because he got a turnover, 3 turnovers, and Ed Crosswell, who had a pretty damn good season, honestly, last year for fantasy purposes. They do bring in a ton of new guys. George Mason, Kim English brings with him Josh Oduro, who is phenomenal. Justin Fernandez, and Devon Ticket Gaines. Got to call him Ticket. That's look that up if I don't have time to explain the full thing, but Ticket Gaines is what we're going to call him. And then freshman Richard Barron, Eli Delarier, and Donovan Santoro. They do have some pretty good pieces here returning. Devin Carter, who showed himself to be a very high upside fantasy option at times, needs to work on his three-point shooting. Bryce Hopkins, who is damn near a shoe-in to, we talked about only Soriano averaging a double-double last year. Here's a guy that's going to average a double-double. 16 and 8.5 last year, 37% roughly from long range. Bryce Hopkins is going to be fantastic. Playing next to Josh Oduro won't be an adjustment for him. He had Ed Crosswell. Oduro is much more, maybe not the shot blocker necessarily, but he can rebound at a pretty high level. But those two together is going to be real solid. Gaines, who can score, inserted there. That makes a lot of sense. Garwi Duell is the other youngster coming in from the SoCal Academy in Texas. He has a chance to play huge minutes immediately. And then returning players such as Rafael Castro, Corey Floyd, and Jaden Pierre. So pretty solid, overall roster for this team. Kim English is a very young coach. Some people have issues with that, but I think he'll be more in tune. I like the way that he ran things at George Mason. So instilling his system here at Providence is going to lead to some really good games for us as fantasy players. And he has the right players in place to really doing well, having big stat lines, being able to be reliable, consistent options. Funny story about Jaden Pierre, too. My notes are all out of whack. Jaden Pierre was not going to return, kind of role player anyways, but he played one-on-one with Kim English, and I believe they streamed it, and he lost. So that's why he decided to come back. I like Garwi Duell as kind of a sneak option. I don't know, how many minutes he'll get. I realistically he should be a big time player right away, but we'll see how he's priced there initially, because I think Oduro and Hopkins are going to put up massive stat lines. Their usage is going to be crazy, and I think it's going to leave a lot of kind of almost scraps for the rest of those guys. But I think this team will play so differently than what we saw under Cooley that they're going to be able to score a lot more points going forward. I think we're going to see them be one of the more fantasy-friendly units, at least on offense, for us. And the dual kid is he's getting so much hype from the coaching staff. It's hard not to be pretty excited about him to a degree. So Providence, we like them. Next team we're going to talk about is the Xavier Musketeers. And, health going to be a problem again, unfortunately, for Zach Fremantle. Same with Jerome Hunter. That's going to be the main concern I have for Xavier, is not having their front court healthy and having them available for the season. They have some really good guards coming in. They have some really high upside guards returning. We'll go through the list here real quick. The departures, Kai Tandy, we're going to miss you. Adam Kunkel, Jack Nungy, who was fantastic for us. Colby Jones, we loved. And Soli Boom, who had a phenomenal season. Soli Boom was making us money during his days at UTEP. Nobody really knew about him. He comes to Xavier and averages 16, 4, and 4, and was pretty damn good. To replace the Colby Jones, Soli Boom duo, they bring in from Rice Quincy Oliveri, scorer. Davion McKnight from Western Kentucky, who does a little bit of everything, going to be relied upon heavily to fill that kind of alpha role on the perimeter. North Texas, Obi Usmain, and then Logan Dunn come from Indiana, and a ton of freshmen. Lazar from Serbia, Lazar Dokovic, that's the name I'm seeing around a lot for excitement. Trey Green from Prolific Prep. Those are a couple of the freshman names that may end up getting some time here right away, especially with the Fremantle Hunter, stuff going on. Looking at it, I think the Xavier team might be a little bit worse. I think a lot is being made about, how great the guards coming in are going to be. Obviously, Desmond Cloud, we're going to be looking for him to make a step as a 3-point shooter, facilitator, just all around playing more minutes and being relied upon heavier. But I just don't see the quality depth that you really need, especially in the middle part of the season when guys are banged up, tired, whatever. And I'm just thinking that the holes in the interior are going to be too much for them to come back from. Just really tough. Had Fremantle and Hunter not been just injured so much and so severely, I think I would do a complete 180 on that stance. But the nice thing for us in DFS purposes is the guards of Xavier are just going to have to do everything. McKnight and Oliveri are going to be very, very solid options. Those 7K range guards that are just going to make things really quite easy, not from an efficiency standpoint, but just volume and usage when it comes to those guys. And then Cloud making that sophomore leap. Other guys, Cam Kraft, he had off-season surgery, so somebody else who has potential, but dealing with health stuff. I'm looking at the rest of this roster, and Usmain, almost 7-foot guy from North Texas, really good defensively. He's going to at least offer some interior help in that regard. As far as scoring goes, he did average 11 points per game, but that's probably going to take a big hit here. But if they can get him to rebound at a semi-high level and block shots, then he can fill in that role and at least stop the bleeding on the inside that there might be a real problem for them against interior players of high caliber this season. All right, next team, the Georgetown Hoyas, and this is where Ed Cooley went. Ed Cooley goes to in conference. Now, I think the Providence fans would have been less angry. I mean, it's tough when you have a coach that's been with you forever in Cooley and they leave. There's going to be some feelings there, but to go to the same conference, that just stings. And we've been talking about, it's so weird to see players transfer in conference. We see it more often now than we ever did before. But seeing a coach do it, that's just as tough because they're going to have to play each other. And there's going to, if you ever been to a college game, those kids say some pretty out there stuff, man. It's not for the faint of heart. Key departures, massive, as you can imagine. Quetus Wahab, Brandon Murray, Primo Spears, Bryson Mazzone, a cook, who got really, really injured severely the other day in a exhibition, had to go to the hospital. Scary stuff there. Jordan Riley and Bradley Izawiro. So a lot of players, right? Pretty much the entire roster. They do bring in some really intriguing pieces, and they have some returners, Wayne Bristol, Ryan Mutombo, Jay Heath. So they've got a few guys coming in, but for the most part, it was hit the portal and bring who you can with you. Rowan Brumbaugh, who ended up decommitting from Northwestern, going to Texas. There were no minutes for him there, so he transfers into Georgetown in a situation where he should play for sure. Ismail Massoud, who was on that fantastic Kansas State team last year, he transfers in. Dontrez Styles, another of the North Carolina castoffs that just couldn't get minutes, but one of those kids where if he plays well under Cooley, another one of Hubert Davis let go. It's a kind of another one where, wow, man, Hubert Davis, he just let 3 or 4 guys go and they're playing really well without him. Caleb Love, Marco Dunn, Dontrez Styles. So this is a situation where I think Styles could be good. Jaden Epps transfers in from Illinois. Love him. And then Supreme Cook, fantastic name. Supreme Cook from Fairfield transfers in. Now, Cook will probably play the role of the 5. He's a little undersized, but he's definitely strong. Averaged 8.5 rebounds last year for Fairfield, but that was at the Fairfield program. He's in Georgetown now. They're going to be going up against some dominant front court players in this conference. Really like Dontrez Styles. I think he has a chance to play huge minutes and maybe be the alpha here. I think a lot of people are going to expect Jay Heath to operate in that role. And Jay Heath has been around for a while. He's definitely the veteran. This is his 5th or 6th season now. He's averaged double digits pretty much every season, despite health issues popping up. He can shoot. He can drive. I mean, he's a pretty solid guy. A lot of people, look at Ed Cooley teams and see dominant guards and how he's been able to operate his offense with a lead guard. Not saying he's going to be Bryce Cotton by any means or Jared Bynum, but you do have a type there that Cooley likes, and I think Jay Heath could certainly step in and do that in this program for Ed Cooley. Jaden Epps was solid, played pretty well for Illinois at times, but he was fairly inconsistent. Did shoot only 30% from long range, right around 9.5, 10 points. He's definitely going to get an opportunity to play a lot in this offense. I like Brumbaugh a lot. That's the one that I'm kind of coming back to each time. I think with him, he's just going to have to be allowed to play through mistakes. With some of these young guys, they're not allowed to do so, and then they're end up, instead of playing to win, they're playing to not make a mistake, and they're thinking too much, right? So that's the tough part for the situation he was in at Texas. But Brumbaugh is a playmaker. He's somebody who, if given the opportunity, could end up actually being the guy on this team very quickly. It might take some more time, but I think Brumbaugh is the one to really keep your eye on for this program. Masood is just kind of, a defender, can hit shots, play small ball 5, just fine there. Styles, though, look out. I think he's going to be a peripheral guy. You get him in there at 4-7, and suddenly he's popping up with 25, 26, 27 fantasy point games, and it's like, yo, Dontrez Styles, let's go. It just sucks that he never got a chance at North Carolina. So there's some inexperience here, definitely, but I think he'll also be able to play through it. But this front court, just like with Xavier, like they're gonna go up against Donovan Clingan when healthy, Joel Soriano, Ryan Kalkbrenner, Eric Dixon to a lesser extent. Like they might have trouble because Ryan Mutombo's he's not Kembe, and Supreme Cook. I don't know that it's gonna come easy for him. Used to the lower majors, it's gonna take him time to really figure things out. I foresee a lot of fouls in Supreme Cook's future, but I would love to see him succeed, definitely. But he's certainly undersized, at least height wise, for the center position in the Big East. So there's already in my mind some DVP spots that we're going to be able to target here, and the front court of Georgetown is definitely one of them. All right, let's move on to the Butler Bulldogs. Butler, they've got some nice looking pieces here in terms of, hey, we got some fantasy viability. Key departures: Jaden Taylor, Seamus Lukosius, Manny Bates, Chuck Harris, and Eric Hunter. They retool with my man Pasha Alexander from St. John's, DJ Davis from UC Irvine, Jamil Telfort from Northeastern, and Pierre Brooks from Michigan State. They bring in transfer also from St. Francis, PA, and Landon Moore, and Andre Screen from Bucknell. The freshman that everybody's been talking about, Finley Bizjack. Finley Bizjack, it's a great name, but he's also going to be able to live up to that great name. It's going to be somebody that I think we're talking about, very quickly. He is a shot maker, definitely, and he can play multiple positions, can defend multiple positions, but they're going to want to put him in a position where they can run him off screens. He only needs a little bit of room. Obviously, watching his stuff against lower tier competition in high school, it's a big jump, but Bizjack has an opportunity to be really, really freaking good. I'm looking at him like, at first, yeah, whatever. But after watching more scrimmages and reading more beat writer reports about him, and as a bonus, we don't really talk about this much lately, but early on in CBB DFS, there's a group of us who would try to talk to kids, and if they would answer a tweet or like a tweet or retweet, it would be like, they're our guy now. And Finley Bizjack seems to look for his name and has already been answering a few of the people in the space here, notably the Butler superfan Rob. So get to know Finley Bizjack because I think he has a chance to be really good. DJ Davis also is an upperclassman, but he can knock down threes with the best of them from way downtown. Averaged 15 points per game at UC Irvine. Had that really trash game against Oregon in the NIT, which I think kind of will leave people with a bitter taste. But overall, for the season, DJ Davis very good. Shot over 41% from long range. Pierre Brooks comes in with huge upside. Didn't play a ton of minutes for Michigan State, but I do think he's got a chance to be very good. Jamel Telfort averaged 16 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists during his season of last year with Northeastern. Northeastern has produced several solid transfer guards in the past. You may remember that kid at Michigan State. What's his name? Oh, yeah, Tyson Walker. Andre Screen averaged 11 and 5. He'll get minutes, but their returners, Connor Turnbull, Jalen Thomas, and that's pretty much it. So brand new team for the most part. Oh, sorry, JMM. No disrespect to John Michael Malloy. This team probably won't find a ton of wins. Thad Matta, big name coach, but the talent's definitely not quite to the level that we're accustomed to seeing both on Butler during their heyday and under Coach Matta. But he's certainly got a bunch of guys in here that are going to play hard and really grind games out. Posh Alexander is fantastic. The name Posh play of the day, which is really just the sneaky play of the day, right? But I named that segment after Posh Alexander. So it shows you how important he not only is to the show, but how great of a player he is. And just his freshman season, we made so much money just playing a 5% owned Posh Alexander that did okay at scoring, high assist rate, got steals, just he did it. He got enough, and they would never price him above 7K. Last year was priced pretty high. We didn't get to use him very much. I'm curious to see how things go here for him price-wise early in the season for Butler, but he's going to be fantastic. Big East Defensive Player of the Year at one time during his tenure with St. John's. Thrives in a higher-paced environment. Big-time playmaker. Worked on his shooting a lot the last season or two. If he can get that, number into the upper 20s to low 30s, and I know that sounds awful to say it like that, but like a 28 to 30% 3-point shooting Posh Alexander would be such a huge difference. He'd really have the opportunity to put together a big season because we know he's going to get a bunch of rebounds, a bunch of steals, and he's got a bunch of 3-point shooters around him. He's going to be able to drive and kick out too. I don't love the interior for this team at the moment, but I think they have a good opportunity to be just deadly on the perimeter. So that's the big thing. But there's another team where interior, I have a lot of question marks. I think that we could certainly be targeting guys against them, and I have a lot of nerves for them. Turnbull certainly had a high block rate last year, but not really conditioned to play heavy minutes. Showed himself to be a decent 3-point shooter, but can we really rely on a guy like Turnbull to come in and start playing 25 plus minutes? I don't know. That to me seems like we're asking a little bit too much, and I don't have any confidence there in this front court at all, at least right now. All right, Seton Hall Pirates, let's go there. Shaheen Holloway comes into season 2. He had to retool, taking the Seton Hall gig. He had to retool. He has to retool again. Tyree Samuel, Casey Ndefo, Femi Odekale, Trey Jackson, and Jameer Harris are all gone. He does bring in a intra-conference transfer from St. John's, Dylan Adewusu, a transfer from Austin Peay and Elijah Hutchins Everett, Sadrake Nganga from Boise State, Jaden Bediako from Santa Clara, who is Charles Bediako's older brother, for those wondering. And then a few freshmen here from Turkey, Arda Ozdogan, and then David Tubek from South Sudan. There are returners by the name of Kadari Richmond, Alamir Dawes, Dre Davis, Jaquan Sanders, and Jaquan Harris. The guard play on this team should be solid. I think Kadari Richmond has a chance to be a 20-point per game scorer. There's a handful of guys in this conference I think could. Not that they all will, but they could. Richmond did shoot 45% from long range. Now, Richmond was super popular on a lot of slates last year. The problem was he was not consistent. How many times will we see him, he pops a 40 in there. It's like, damn, this guy, how could you not roster this guy at 6'2"? Well, because he has a floor in him of 8. I don't think we'll see him hit any low single-digit floors this year, especially looking at the makeup of their team. But he's certainly a guy that has to step in and be the alpha from day one and really put together a huge, huge, huge season. And I think he definitely will. Let me see. I should have this pulled up already, but I don't, of course. I have a box score that I want to show you guys from one of their exhibitions. And by the way, let me take this moment to say, Stat Broadcast, you really should sponsor us. One of the great ways to, because one of the things I always hear, where do you get starters on time? You can't find any starter information. Well, Stat Broadcast is a site for the media to be able to follow along box scores, live stats, all that. Well, there is a way to, most of them are free, but some of them require a password. And if you ever need that password, you would not be able to ask me because I would not know it. Nope, I wouldn't know it. Anyways, that's a great site to watch for starters, but also just getting live stats. And you can also go back. They have exhibition results. They have, pretty much any game for any school on there. You can majority of the time find it there. So now let me get this pulled up. I should already have it. Kadari Richmond had a huge game, and we don't want to get too caught up in exhibition games, right? Because okay, here it is. Against NJIT. You don't want to get too caught up in this, but let's look and let's take a gander here. In 32 minutes, Kadari Richmond hit 2 threes, 9 of 10, so he shot 90%. 9 rebounds, which is huge, 24 points, 6 assists, you heard that right, and a couple of steals. Really, really huge game. The other players of note that got over 30 minutes, Alamir Dawes, who basically played all but 2 minutes, Dre Davis, who played 33, and Dylan Adewusu, who played 30. Now, Adewusu didn't affect the game statistically speaking, but he did very well on defense. Dre Davis scored 19 real points, shot 7 of 15, so we're going to be looking at some more scoring from him. And Alamir Dawes hit 6 of his 15, but he attempted 15 shots, 13 points, 2 rebounds, had an assist, had a couple steals. So the 3 guys who are going to do the heavy lifting when it comes to scoring, and this is an exhibition box score I can look at, and it basically confirms what I already thought prior, that Dre Davis, Kadari Richmond, and Alamir Dawes are going to do all of the scoring for this team. You're going to see most of the other guys contribute either via rebounding, or Adewusu is going to be out there for his defense. Jaden Badiako is going to be out there to block shots, probably not going to play a huge role other than that. Hutchin Everett, I think, might be a little overwhelmed coming from the Austin Peay. Jaquan Sanders has upside. Isaiah Coleman has upside, but you're really looking at a 3-man show, I think, here for the most part. Adewusu has his moments, and we saw him at St. John's put together some pretty solid, games, especially when Posh had to sit out sometimes. Adewusu is capable. But Richmond's going to have a monster season. His usage rate's going to be over 30%. I'm almost 100% sure on that. And Alamir Dawes is going to play like 39 of the, every game he's going to play about 39 minutes, if not the entire game. Dre Davis's, ascension here as well is going to be integral for Seton Hall's success. Now, I have a lot of faith in Coach Holloway. I think he's going to make games tough for their opponents. I think it'll be hell on earth at times, but I still think they're probably not where they need to be just yet in terms of turning the corner and winning 20 plus games. I think that it still is going to take some time. You look at their schedule, they start off with a string of winnable games, St. Peter's, Fairleigh Dickinson, Albany, Wagner. They have the, that game against USC coming up as well. They have a game against Rutgers. They have a game against Missouri. So they have some nice tune-ups. Baylor on the road. So they've got some nice tune-ups prior to the conference schedule starting, after they have, the first 4 or 5 on their schedule of all kind of semi-cupcake games that they should win. Then things get a little difficult. So we'll see, right before Christmas, they have a game at home against UConn, we'll really see where they stand after that, Baylor, Rutgers, Missouri run right beforehand, and be able to tell if this team is going to be able to gut out a postseason berth or not. But if Richmond takes off and has this incredible season that it looks like he might have, he'll be able to drag them across the finish line, I think. He's going to be that good. Totally different opinion on Kadari Richmond than I had last year. We're going to certainly be using him a lot. We're probably going to have to pay a heavy price to do so. All right, we wrap this up with the DePaul Blue Demons. Tony Stubblefield already in year 3. That's just crazy, man. Time goes by so fast. My man Emoja Gibson's gone, 42% three-point shooter. Loved him. I know he burned a lot of people, but I loved that kid, man. He was awesome. Nick Ongenda finally gone. Errol Penn, Philman Gebrewet, Yoranai, and Javon Johnson. So a lot of pieces out the door here. They do bring in from South Carolina Chico Carter, Elijah Fisher from Texas Tech, Jeremiah Oden from Wyoming, Jaden Henley from Minnesota, who I think has a chance to be really good, Mac Etienne from UCLA, and then they have a non-D1 transfer in Keandre Young and a freshman from the NBA Academy in Jermaine Kamara. Returners, Caleb Murphy. I will still be trying to push Caleb Murphy on you this year at near min price. Please believe it. I don't think he is dead just yet. Deshaun Nelson also returning, Jalen Terry, Zion Cruz, and KT Ramey. So there is some returning guys here that are certainly worthwhile. The DePaul team, historically, the last couple of years, their games have been fast-paced, fantasy-friendly. You stack against them. You can stack for them. When is this team going to be able to turn it around and win games? I don't know. They won 3 in the Big East last year, 10 overall. I don't know that this team has more than that in them. Perhaps they win 12 this year. I think it's still going to be tough, but you losing that much pieces and trying to get everybody kind of, the chemistry needed to win at this level, it's kind of hard. I don't know that Stubblefield, he's going to have it in him to do this thing. Not rooting for him to lose his job, but I don't think I see the turnaround happening here with him. Deshaun Nelson, going to have to be a big-time stud. Really, really good. There was a conglomerate of people who thought he might be the Big East Newcomer of the Year for a while, but I think he's going to be, pretty integral to their success. And at the very least, he's going to be one of their top scorers, right? Otherwise, guys like, Kamara, Jeremiah Oden, Elijah Fisher, Keandre Young, like it's tough to see where they fit. Like Jeremiah Oden is probably going to be a 3-point shooting role player. Jaden Henley shot about 39% from long range, had starting experience. I think he has a chance to step up and be one of the better players on this team too. Minutes should be available. Elijah Fisher, reclassified to Texas Tech a year ago. You know how I feel about reclassifications. They sometimes struggle, and he did. So he's going to have that chance to really kind of, play through mistakes and be a cheap guy that maybe we can rely on and get some usage out of him. We got to see Caleb Murphy, though, man. Caleb Murphy a healthy Caleb Murphy has to be considered like the top DFS option for DePaul. He might not end up producing that way, and I know a lot of you that maybe aren't familiar with Caleb Murphy during his time with South Florida are going to be looking at me sideways like, huh? Because I kept pushing him on you. I kept pushing, hey, this guy's playing 25 minutes. Hey, he's playing 29 minutes. He got a start in late January against Connecticut. He just couldn't stop fouling, couldn't stop turning over the ball. He wasn't scoring, but something changed, and he really got comfortable, and they really were able to rely on him. His usage rate was super high the last few games. Like running through his last few games, February 25th against Marquette, 16 minutes, 27% usage rate, 10 points, shot 4 of 7 from the field. Against Connecticut, 23% usage rate in 19 minutes, just had 5 points, but he did have 3 steals, took 6 shots. Creighton, 24 minutes, he had a 28% usage rate, scored 13 points, 9 shot attempts, got to the foul line a bunch of times, shot 5 of 7 from the foul line, 4 rebounds, 2 assists. Arguably, not even arguably, the best game of the season. Seton Hall struggled in 22 minutes, total non-factor. But against Xavier, 20% usage rate, 25 minutes, 10 points, 4 rebounds, and assists. Caleb Murphy, as a healthy player, is going to be good for fantasy purposes, and he will not be priced very high. You look at what he did on South Florida, especially like towards the end of his tenure, 37 minutes, 29 minutes, 36, 37, 39. And these are starters. 14 shot attempts, 11, 10, 12, 12. Big time assists, 8, 2, 8, 4, 3, 6, 8, 6, 4, 4. So he was a big time passer, big time scorer, playing a lot of minutes. He was just dealing with staying healthy and coming back. And you look at some of these numbers, 27.7% assist rate his last season at South Florida, 26% shot rate, 25% usage rate, drew almost 4 fouls per 40. Not a very good free throw shooter. That's been kind of an Achilles heel for him, unfortunately. Did shoot about 44% on 2-point field goals, though, because he is able to get to the rack. Just a really good player that I think has the opportunity to, if healthy, kind of sneak up on people. And it's going to be held against him that, hey, this guy was awful last year. We can't use him. And there's going to be a slate where he ends up inevitably either breaking it for his price or totally, truly breaking the slate. And people are going to be like, we didn't see this coming. What happened? And what Caleb Murphy? You're going to be able to think back and be like, you know what? We did see that coming. Really good athlete. Going to be a chance to be the alpha on this team above Jalen Terry, who I think a lot of people would look to first. Caleb Murphy's going to be good. Jalen Terry will operate as the point and kind of facilitate, but Murphy's going to be the alpha in this backcourt. That to me is how it's going to be. And this is another team that, replacing Yoranai and Nick Ongendo, your shot blockers, your rebounders. This is going to be another team that just doesn't have the front court to really keep opposing big men off the glass or in check at all. Other freshmen they bring in is about 6'9", 6'10", Churchill Abbas. Super raw, right? He's gonna probably be forced into some minutes. He's a bigger kid, and like I said, raw. But what else are they gonna do? They're gonna have to just shove him down there and hope he can take up space. And then you have Mac Etienne, who comes from UCLA, where he was a former 4-star recruit and showed flashes in his freshman season, but could never get it going. Scored less than 100 points in 50 games. And he's just, you can't say, even though he played at UCLA for a couple, 2-3 seasons, that he has enough experience to handle a starting role. I do think he's going to play a lot of minutes out of necessity, because you look at this front court, 6'8", 6'8", 6'9", 6'10" is Mac Etienne. Jaden Henley 6'7", but you want him more on the wing. This is a DePaul team that we're going to be targeting front court players again. I mean, I don't have to, but I will. Joel Soriano, who's guarding him on this team? Nobody. Ryan Kalkbrenner, who's guarding him on this team? Nobody. Donovan Clingan, who's guarding him on this team? Nobody. Oso Ighodaro is probably putting up 20 and 12 against this team. This is just going to be sick. So Xavier, DePaul, Butler, Georgetown. I mean, there's some teams in this conference that are just going to be so bad on the interior. We're going to want to stack big men against them and at least play the alpha regardless of price. But that's going to be the real kind of theme for me on Big East slates. Like, hey, who's playing DePaul tonight? Who's playing Seton Hall tonight? And we're just grabbing that big and playing them. So that is efficient. We did the Big East very quick, very efficient. Let's go through some predictions or awards, I guess. Defensive Player of the Year. How could I not pick Posh Alexander? He's going to be so good on that end, and whoever he guards. And that's the other thing. We're going to have to take bigs against Butler, but we don't want to take guards against Butler because Posh is going to be on them, and he handcuffs with the best of them. Coach of the Year, I got to be a little bit chalky and say Rick Pitino, just because he's Rick Pitino. And I think if St. John's makes the tournament, you just give it to him. Player of the Year, this one's tougher for me because I think conventional wisdom is Tyler Kolek, right? But it could be Justin Moore, it could be Bryce Hopkins. There's so many good options that you could theoretically pick. I do think Joel Soriano is the player of the year under Rick Pitino. I mean, you saw how good he could be under Mike Anderson. Think about how good he is in a Rick Pitino-led offense. So I will say Joel Soriano. As far as newcomer of the year, or like, transfer or whatever, just a player that's coming in that wasn't in this conference last year, there are several options we could pick. The one that I think probably sticks out the most is for Villanova with Tyler Burton, who was just phenomenal at Richmond, had to do pretty much everything. Now, there are other mouths on the perimeter that have to eat, of course, but I think Burton is going to have a really nice season and kind of show some versatility where, yeah, his scoring average might go down, but I think his rebounding goes up. I think his three-point shooting percentage goes up, and overall just has a nice season. So he would be my newcomer of the year. And then my all-conference team, Tyler Kolek, Joel Soriano, Bryce Hopkins, Justin Moore, and Trey Alexander. We'll go there. There's a lot of good players in this Big East, though. A lot of big players. Let's talk about a breakout as well. So this will be somebody, right, who maybe a role player last year or barely played, or people just aren't familiar with or didn't put up big stats. Breakout-wise, there's one that sticks out to me. And I guess he can't even really, he averaged 9 and 5. So, but Alex Caravan's stepping into a role where he's going to be given more shots. He's going to be leaned on a little more. He's got, Tristan Newton and Cam Spencer, the upperclassmen there. There's a group of youngsters coming in, and he, maybe he gets lost in the shuffle, but I think they are able to feature him a little more. I think he's going to be super confident when the ball comes to him, less having to kind of, pass out and more just, hey, if you've got the shot, take it. I think that he's going to be instilled with that confidence, and we're going to see his shot rate go up, and he's going to be able to get nice looks off of doubles of Klingon. Tristan Newton kicking out off of drives, Cam Spencer making the extra pass. There's just going to be a lot of opportunity for Caravan to just absolute smoke this year. So I'm high on him. He would be my breakout. I think he's in line for a pretty damn nice season. So that is where I will go. So that is wrapping up the Big East. We want to make these quick, easy, and just, really just throw that info at you. So the rest of the week, we will have a show tomorrow night, same time, 9 p.m. PST, and Tuesday night. Those are going to cover, SEC tomorrow, and then also I'm going to do a combo mid-major, low-major show, and that's just going to pull teams and players from a variety of places. None of the power conferences that we've talked about. That could be the Atlantic 10, that could be the NEC, that just anything that I think, hey, you need to know about this group, because A, this is going to be a very good team that could make the tournament. There's betting opportunities. B, this is a very strong player. Anytime this team's on the slate, we're going to be able to roster this guy. Prop betting opportunities galore. So there's going to be, 12, 13, 14 different teams or players that I talk about from the mid-major, low-major level. If you're interested in that, you certainly won't want to miss it, because that's going to be probably my favorite one of the preview shows, just because a lot of those teams that aren't normally on slates later in the year will be in that first month in November, and a lot of people don't know anything about those teams. And then they'll be back. The best of the best will be back in late February, early March for the tournament. And college football still rolls on. Slate starts Tuesday, every day, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. You can rest assured the Thursday version of the CFB Supershow will still be going on as normal. And then Saturday morning, 1 hour before lock. Very busy time the last 2 weeks, but all that's still going on. Thanks to everybody who continues to support this show. We do it for you. I am very excited about this season. It's going to be our best one yet, and there is a lot to like about the FTN product right now. So if you're not a member just yet, get on over to ftndaily.com or ftnbets.com. Check out some of the free stuff you can see as well. There are different sign up tiers that you can do, but for the most part, you'll get access to everything, whether it's the college sports that I provide, the pro sports of all our geniuses on staff, the optimizers that we have, the projections, the articles, the shows, the trackers, the tools, everything possible to be a winning competitive player. Appreciate, guys. Keep supporting the show. We'll see you tomorrow night, same time, same place, right back here on the FTN YouTube channel. See y'all.